Happy Friday, y'all. The best weekend of football is here. The Cardiac Bears going to try and put the Rams on upset alert. The 1 seeds in Denver and Seattle coming online. And the Bills trying to summon a little more Josh Allen magic as we tell you the key for every game this weekend. And Rick Barnes, coaching legend, going to join the show about telling us how to navigate the turbulent waters of modern college athletics and coaching up the Vols star freshman for another run in a locked and loaded SEC yet again. And it's time to play everybody's favorite game. Are the Dodgers bad for baseball? Why the latest high-price free agent signing seems to have all signs pointing towards a decided lack of baseball in 2027 as we weigh the lockout probabilities here on Golic and Golic, Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr. We mentioned Rick Barnes already, but Tom Waddle going to stop by, Dan Graziano, Zach Cohen for a little bit of betting advice going into the weekend. This feels good, Dan. I don't know where you've been traditionally on this take that the divisional round's kind of the sweet spot of the best football, where wild card weekend you get to buy in bulk, but this round you've got even better teams moving on, the 1 seeds in the mix. Ho-hum, we've got a national championship in college football Monday. This feels like the crown jewel of the postseason. Would you agree?
Yeah, it definitely does. What we think will be better games, but we did get a number of great games last weekend and more of them. So it will be interesting to see if this weekend outdoes last week. I only made it to this weekend one time. That was in 92. We beat New Orleans in the wild card round when I was in Philadelphia. And then we went to play Dallas in Dallas. And we rolled in cocky as all get out, too. We thought we were going to go in there and smoke them and move on to the NFC Championship game. And we got smoked. That was Dallas, their first year of back-to-back 92 and 93 Super Bowl wins. But, yeah, so I only got to play in this weekend once, but it sure is exciting.
Boy, a badass defense and an offense that was at times unreliable, rolling into a situation against a team trying to maybe reestablish dynasty status. It'd be scary to hear that as a Houston Texans fan going into this weekend, but that's kind of the story of this whole postseason, right? Especially now getting Denver and Seattle involved. We've got the triumvirate of great defenses. We've got one veteran quarterback left in the mix. We've got the reigning MVP in Josh Allen as well here. So there's a lot of interesting in this weekend. If you only got one, which is the most selfish and cruel game to play, I know you're calling Bills Broncos this weekend on Westwood One, so this feels kind of ass backwards to say, but what do you think is the most interesting matchup this weekend as we set all of the dominoes up here and try and see how they fall? That doesn't make sense.
To me, it's the Rams at Chicago. I mean, one of these things just doesn't belong. Are we still saying that about Chicago? I mean, Caleb Williams making miraculous plays outside the pocket, the defense getting turnovers, although they didn't get any last week, but that's what they built their season on. Taking on what I think we both believe is the best complete team in the league in the Rams, though their defense has been a little suspect lately. And going into a weather game, I mean, it is Arctic blast going on in the Midwest and the East Coast. It's supposed to be unbelievably cold, and there'll be some wind in the windy city of Chicago. So you wonder how that will affect a West Coast team like the Rams as well.
It's a great reminder, especially with Matthew Stafford rolling in with a banged-up finger and being 37 years old, his big age. I agree. Just laying this one out here, a Rams team that felt like the best team in the NFL, the Bears that seemingly are never dead. If you're looking for television gold, you almost don't need to show up for the first 3 quarters of the game. Turn it on in the fourth quarter and see what happens once Caleb Williams and company are backed into a corner. This game does, though, have the most on the line in a different way, a big picture way overall, if you're looking for a little changing of the guard around the NFL. If the Rams lose, this is going to be the first conference championship weekend coming up next weekend without a starting quarterback that has a Super Bowl win as a starter since 2005. That was Ben Roethlisberger, Jake Plummer, Matt Hasselbeck, and Jake Delhomme. So we mentioned this without having, Tom Brady, who we waved bye-bye to a few years ago. Certainly Patrick Mahomes has been ever present in the AFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. So if Matthew Stafford goes down this weekend, you're talking about a completely clean slate for a new group of quarterbacks and teams to all kind of add to their postseason legacy in a way that we know changes the way that we talk about them going forward.
Wow. And really out of these 8 teams, there's only 2 like big time vets, right? Matthew Stafford and Josh Allen.
Yep.
Brock Purdy, I get, it's been in a few years, but still, as far as guys that you relied on for years and have played for a while, it's Josh and it's Stafford. I didn't know that stat. That would be wild, but it is a changing of the guard. Already with Kansas City not in it, it feels like a changing of the guard.
No, it's in some ways refreshing. This is the parity that the NFL chases. I think that to an extent, having a big bad is always fun, but this year's been kind of an outlier. It's been a year dominated by defense and these young teams, and I do think it's good when you get a chance to add a little bit of postseason lore to some of these guys' already incredible resume. You mentioned Brock Purdy and what he's already done. Bo Nix in year 2 feels like a guy that's starting to continue to make progress. So with that in mind, let's give everyone a little appetizer. We'll have a deep dive later in the show on the last couple of games here. Tom Waddle, as we mentioned, going to help us look at that Bears-Rams game, that one of the most entertaining. Zach will help us bet it later on. But as we lay these games out now, let's ask a big question or two, something to hold on to for each of these games. And let's start off with the one that you're on the call for. Bills-Broncos this weekend, out in Mile High. Denver, the 1 seed in the AFC. Can the Buffalo Bills overcome their injuries? Dad, I'm sure you and Ryan Radke, your partner in the booth, have been keeping an eye on the injury list, the questionables and inactives. Some of the guys already announced out for Buffalo could be a key factor in can they hold up defensively against Bo Nix in this improving offense for the Broncos.
I mean, the wide receiver position, they basically have 3 healthy wide receivers, and 2 of those guys, well, Keon Coleman has been benched 3 or 4 times this year. Brandon Cooks just joined the team like 6 weeks ago from New Orleans, right? And Khalil Shakir obviously has been the mainstay, but Gabe Davis and Terrell Shavers both hurt their knees last week. They're out. 2 tight ends, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox. Dalton Kincaid has a knee and a calf going on. I mean, you're basically relying on Josh Allen, James Cook. Those are, and certainly Josh Allen isn't healthy, but Cook is, I think, was 4th in the league in scrimmage yards, over 1,900. I think this will be a tight end running back type of an offense for Buffalo, because we know that secondary is excellent for the Broncos. Certainly the pass rush is as well. They need to try and establish the run to not have that defense for Denver just teeing off.
Yeah, I think that's certainly going to be huge for Buffalo on that side. Can they take some of the teeth out of that pass rush defensively there? But then you look at some of the injuries on defense as well for the Bills, and that's what I think of most, considering it's their glaring weakness. Terrell Bernard with a calf injury, questionable going into this game. You've got Jordan Poyer already out, Maxwell Hairston already out in the secondary. That's going to have to try and see if they can rattle Bo Nix a little bit when he tries some of the extracurriculars, because we asked the question yesterday, what's the big difference between last year and this year in this matchup, a matchup the Bills won decisively? It's that Bills rush defense. They're god-awful this year, 30th in EPA per rush on the ground this season after being ranked 4th last year. That group has to go and be able to show something against a Broncos team where, especially after the injury to Dobbins at running back, hasn't quite been as potent, even though the offensive line's still moving weight up front. The running backs right now not in a position to take advantage of that.
Weeks 1 to 10, Denver was 9th in the league rushing. Then Dobbins got hurt. Weeks 11 to 18, they're 23rd. Now, R.J. Harvey's doing a nice job. He leads all rookies with 12 total touchdowns, but still, the running game has not been there. And it's still up in the air. The Bills may get Ed Oliver back. He's been out. Obviously, he had the torn bicep, and his window opened up to come back. And it looks like he's progressing, unlike we'll get into Fred Warner from San Francisco. But Ed Oliver, we'll see if he can get on the field.
Well, with that in mind, let's progress to that rematch in the NFC West. 3rd time's the charm for Seattle and the 49ers. And the big injury updates of note start off with Sam Darnold. Tweaked an oblique this week in practice, left practice Thursday out of an abundance of caution, said he felt something there while throwing routes on air in that period, but says he's going to be good to go for this weekend. And Fred Warner, another one of those players whose window had opened, that 21 days coming off IR, ruled out for this weekend, as we expected. Just too much to ask of him to be able to come back. They're hoping that if they make it to the conference championship weekend, maybe that's a different story here. So with that in mind, Dad, and knowing what we know now about Sam Darnold in a season where he's already given the ball away more than any quarterback in football, is he good enough to finally get his first win in the playoffs and get the Seattle team a win?
Well, now he may not need to be good enough with that defense, right? But what he can't do is turn the ball over. Now, luckily for Seattle, they're going up against the San Francisco defense that doesn't get a whole lot of turnovers, right? I mean, what have they had? I think 6 interceptions on the year. They only had 20 sacks. So it's been a year where they really haven't gotten pressure on the quarterback, really haven't ball hawked on defense. So that's a plus for Sam Darnold. So just don't turn the ball over. Just be solid. And the team, you don't have to carry the team. That's the defense's job. So again, as long as he doesn't turn the ball over, I don't think he has to be great to win this game.
No, and Seattle's approach to the 49ers in both games this season, a funny snapshot, right? They played them in week 1 and then not again until week 18, and now we're going to play them in the division round. And obviously week 1, they lose that game, but even in that game, Dad, I think the game plan was telling, right? 26 rushing attempts against 23 passes for Sam Darnold in a game that was in balance. There, you fast forward to week 18 where 13-3 win, but the defense kind of really stomped out San Francisco. 39 rushing attempts against 26 passing attempts. Sam Darnold in this passing attack with JSN have been great throwing deep, and they haven't really felt like making a lot of use against this team. To your point about Darnold under pressure, 11 of his 20 turnovers have come under pressure. The problem is for San Francisco, like we've mentioned ad nauseum, 31st in quarterback pressure percentage this year on defense. Losing Nick Bosa, losing Fred Warner, losing so many of these guys, going to make it difficult. So I'm with you. I think Sam Darnold is good enough, asterisk, because that Seattle defense is on the other side of the field waiting to help bail him out. Let's move along to the Rams game that we talked about here. Rams-Bears, one of the biggest games of the weekend. Do the Bears have another comeback in them, Dad? Did what you see from the Rams in the wild card round against the Panthers make you think they can be another pelt on the wall for this Bears team that's got 7 wins after the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter?
Mike, I mean, how do you say no, right? I mean, Ryan Radke and I called the Green Bay and Chicago playoff game. We thought it was over. We thought we're going to have to go to our fill material at 21-3 at halftime, 21-6 going into the fourth quarter. But I mean, here they go again. That's like where they live. And as we talked about, the Rams defense has not been what we've seen out of the Rams defense later in the season. I mean, the Rams are a better team, but that doesn't seem to matter to Chicago. Now, can they pull turnovers? They didn't last game, but still came back and won. Dennis Allen, the D coordinator for Chicago, changed up the pressure packages in the second half against Green Bay. That certainly made a difference. You have a quarterback in Matthew Stafford that's not the most mobile guy in the world. So if you can get some pressure on him and make him get rid of the ball, maybe you can ball hawk an interception or two. Weather will be interesting. Bears have a really good rushing attack, a 2-headed rushing attack. Can they hold on to the ball in the bad weather and keep Stafford and the offense off the field? I mean, I can't pick Chicago, but would it surprise me if Monday we come in talking about a Chicago win? Hell no. I mean, they've done it 7 times at the end of the game.
I picked the Rams to make the Super Bowl, and I'm getting close to flipping it this weekend.
Me too.
It's insane. The thing that kept coming up for me watching the Rams in their last game against the Seahawks and the 2 bangers they played this year, and then the wild card round is at the end of the Seahawks game, there were multiple drives where Stafford and the offense had a chance to put the nail in the coffin and couldn't. In the Carolina game, at the end of the first half, they had a chance to punch it in a way that could have swung the game and instead allowed Carolina to go back in the 2-minute drill and score. Like, they've been failing to land the knockout blow late in a way that is the worst possible medicine to be taken going into this game. Because Caleb Williams, we know about the 6 fourth quarter comebacks this year. He has a 123.2 passer rating on third down in the fourth quarter, including the playoffs, second highest in the NFL this season. He's thrown 7 touchdown passes with a 128.5 rating on third down when trailing this year. That's the best mark in the NFL in both categories. When you back him into a corner, there's been no one better than Caleb Williams this year, and it is scary, scary stuff. Let's talk about the defense I mentioned off the top, though, maybe most reminiscent of your guys' gangrene defense back in the day with the Philadelphia Eagles. The Texans and the Patriots. This game, the Texans defense comes in the talk of the town, wiping out Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers in the wild card weekend. Who has the edge in this game? The MVP candidate, Drake May and the Patriots offense, or Houston Texan and the Sabretooth defense?
So unlike the Chicago game, this one doesn't seem it's going to have weather bothering it. It seems like it's going to be in the 40s and decent. So that shouldn't affect a dome team in Houston coming to visit the Northeast. I listen, you know me in defense. But it's not like New England has a bad defense, especially a scoring defense. They're only a point behind Houston, who's given up 17-plus points a game. New England's given up 18-plus points a game. But the way Houston does it, it's so odd for today's game of chess match, of alignment, of trying to fool an offense with your disguise on defense. They just line up. When they blitz, you know they're going to blitz. When they rush 4, you know you're going to rush 4. They're not disguising coverages. They're just playing ball, and they're just absolutely grinding teams into the dirt. They again, Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, they don't start on the field at the same time on drive, so they have fresh legs. They're rotating in. But New England is so solid, Mike, on both sides of the ball. This, to me, is really a toss-up game, and it's going to come down to C.J. Stroud, possibly without Nico Collins. I don't know if there's been a decision yet, but he's still in concussion protocol. Christian Kirk had the big game last game.
He has been ruled out officially. Nico Collins has been ruled out for this game. So a huge blow to that offense where Christian Kirk had a phenomenal game last week. Jaden Higgins, Dalton Schultz. We can say all the names. You're right about New England offensively. It's going to take more of what Drake May did this last week, where, again, he was sacked a bunch by the Chargers, but became the first Patriots player in franchise history with over 250 passing yards and 50 rushing yards in a game. I do think the Patriots offense is good enough, but if you look at the other defense that was number one in scoring defense at the time, it was the Cleveland Browns. And Myles Garrett alone sacked Drake May 5 times in that game. It was obscene what happened there. So this team has trouble protecting the quarterback. Drake May, the third most pressured quarterback in football. I'll be fascinated to see what happens on the other side of that matchup, because at the end of the year, Patriots run defense wasn't very good. Texans run offense wasn't good all year long. Both kind of reverse course on Wild Card Weekend, and we'll see who has it back. How can you not be fired up hearing all this as we head into Wild Card Weekend? It's going to be incredible. Coming up next, not nearly as incredible as the plans for the third straight parade in Los Angeles are after this move by the Dodgers today. We'll get you more of the big spending acquisitions next on Golic and Golic. GG's from the Dunk of the Year candidate. Anthony Black decided that, hey, in the midst of a breakout season for the Orlando Magic in year 3, the number 6 overall pick from the 23 draft wanted to take their trip to Germany and make it count. A big-time slam against the Grizzlies, up over not 1, not 2, not 3, 4 defenders with a game tied and just over 2 minutes left. They'd eventually go on to win 118-111. But watching this, Dad, might be the single greatest poster of all time when you catch that side angle where it's just one hand in the ball up in between 4 defenders, 4/5 of the entire other team. It's hard to find one better than that, even if it wasn't the highest, wasn't the hardest, anything like that. Just sheer picturesque nature. That's as good as I've ever seen.
Do you think in time he'll be able to get that picture framed and actually get those 4 players to sign it, to put it in his den?
So here's my question is, if you were one of those guys, would you sign it?
I think after a bit of time, I would. Like right now, no, you're kind of embarrassed by it. But I think over time, and I don't know what that time frame is. Are you done playing basketball? Are you in your rocking chair at that point? I don't know. But at some point, you got to just say, you know what? You got to give it to him. And while you're a player, you probably won't. But at some point, it would be great if those 4 guys signed it.
It would be an awesome addition to any man cave there. I have a feeling one where, like, I'd blow that thing up in the den. I'd get a painting commission to that thing. I'd have it playing on a projector on the outside of my house. You would not be able to move more than 5 square feet in my home without seeing that picture for the rest of my life. So shout out to Anthony Black on that one. What an unbelievable display of audacity in that moment. Speaking of audacity, the audacity of very rich teams to sign very high-priced free agents this offseason offseason in baseball. Let's start with Bo Bichette. The Mets struck out on Kyle Tucker. So they decided to agree to a 3-year, $126 million with Bo Bichette, according to ESPN. Physical pending, includes opt-outs after the first and second season. So with an average annual value of $42 million, this could ostensibly become a 1-year deal, while Kyle Tucker, anything but 4-year, $240 million to go play for the Los Angeles Dodgers. We mentioned Tucker was going to be one of the most high-prized bats this offseason. He brings outfield defense at a time where the Dodgers desperately need it here. And with some of the deferrals, $30 million deferred, sources told ESPN, it would give his present-day average annual value $57.1 million, a record edging out Juan Soto's $51 million average with the Mets. And it brings us back to a place that we're pretty familiar with, not only in baseball, Dad, but with this current Dodgers team that's the back-to-back world champions. And after going out and being able to do this offseason, the other rash of signings that they have for a team that was already great, the Dodgers bad for baseball seems to just be like the presumed thing. Are the Dodgers and what they've done here going to all but ensure that we have a lockout after next season when the CBA comes up in December?
Well, the Dodgers aren't bad for baseball. The Dodgers are playing by the rules, right? Change the rules. Like you said, if there's going to be a lockout, maybe. But right now, the Dodgers aren't doing anything wrong. They have an owner who wants to win, and he's going to spend the money, right? I think they have 8 players with over $100 million contracts. Tucker got a $64 million signing bonus, 54 paid immediately. I mean, that's just stunning. But they're not ruining baseball. The system, if you want to say anything, is ruining baseball. That's what's doing it. They paid a luxury tax of $170 million last year, which was more than number 2 and number 3, the Mets and the Yankees combined. But again, not the Dodgers' fault. They're playing by the rules. You don't like the rules, change them. So I don't blame the Dodgers at all, man. Load up while you can.
Well, I don't think anyone's blaming the Dodgers. Like, if anyone would, they could. I think the realities are also the Dodgers are able to do things because of the economics around their team, because of their local TV deal, that a lot of these other markets aren't able to. In some cases, aren't willing to do either, which I think is important to note.
Right.
And that becomes, to me, the backdrop of the debate that's going to happen, because every other owner in Major League Baseball, what are they going to want? They're going to want to use this to finally get the hard cap they've been chasing forever. And we know the MLBPA is almost never going to let that happen. So that unstoppable force meets immovable object is a fascinating specter hanging over this whole season, where I'm sure the Dodgers are thinking, yeah, let's spend now and chase and go for the 3-peat, because we might not be playing baseball next year.
The Major League Baseball Players Union is the strongest union in professional sports. If I had to bet any amount of your money, I would bet they are not going to a hard cap. They are not giving in on that. That is going to be the bane of the owner's existence, that there's no hard cap. Keep paying a luxury tax, but no hard cap, and I do not see that changing. At the end of the day, no player wants that.
You know what I see changing here at 5:30 p.m. Eastern? This show, To Countdown Live with Stan Verrett, presented by Prime. Coming up after us, I'm sure Stan's going to have all the news and notes you need, extra information on how the Dodgers are slowly pulling the fabric of the sport apart as they sign one rich guy after another. Because who wouldn't want to come and get paid millions of dollars, basically be guaranteed a ring, and get to live in Southern California? Coming up next, though, let's head to the icy cold Midwest and ask Tom Waddle how the Bears pull off another upset here on Golic and Golic. Welcome back to Golic, the divisional round almost upon us here. And one of the biggest games, the most intriguing games, I think, taking place in Chicago. And that is why our next guest is here with us. Delighted to welcome in Tom Waddle, former Chicago Bears wide receiver, longtime host of Waddle and Sylvia at ESPN Chicago. And Tom, I have to imagine, like, everyone kind of moving different right now in Chicago, right? Like, how much confidence has Ben Johnson and this Bears run imbued in this city that has been starving for this moment for so long?
It's unlike anything I've ever seen, Mike. It's crazy. It's about time, I guess, is the best way to describe it, because, you know, we've lived in this arena for so long and have underachieved. And this time of year, we're usually asking ourselves who's the best fit to replace the previous coach and what are we going to do with the 10th overall draft pick. So the conversations are obviously a whole lot different. I mean, I was telling someone the other day, it's really hard to describe what has transpired this season. I think when the season began, I was adamant that not only did they have the right coach, but they had the right quarterback, and that would lead to them winning more games than losing. But I could in no way, shape, or form had predicted that at this point they would still be alive and they would be preparing, to face the Rams in the divisional playoff game. The entire season has tested the boundaries of my football imagination, and there's really no great way to describe what we've seen. I think with the win over the Green Bay Packers last week, it's the 7th time that this team has won a football game this year when trailing with 2 minutes to go. It hasn't happened in the history of the modern NFL. So, when you think about a season where you've won a majority of your the games that you've won, they've won 12 games at this point. More than half of them you've won when you were trailing with 2 minutes to go. So it's just been a magical ride to this point.
It's unbelievable. And that portion of it, we know from the outside looking in, that doesn't feel like something replicable, and yet they keep doing it. You played this game at the highest level. What is it about Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, that combination, that's allowed them to have a chance and get over the hump in all those moments?
As corny as it sounds, Mike, I think it's a belief. I've said all year long, the best thing that ever happened to Caleb was Ben Johnson. As magnificent of a player as Caleb has been his entire life, he's never been asked to do what Ben Johnson asked him to do starting at training camp, and that's play on time and play in structure. He won a Heisman a couple of years ago at Southern Cal by throwing the Superman cape on and just making plays out on the edge. In this offense, Ben told him, I'm going to demand that you play on time and you play in structure. I think Ben also, was a little bit flexible, knowing that Caleb's got this really unique skill set, and he didn't want to completely neuter his playmaking ability by forcing him at all times to play on time and in structure. So I think that it's been a marriage of those two concepts, but I think the key word for me is trust. Ben came in and told everybody in that room before they went out onto the field for the first practice and training camp, you have to trust what we're going to ask you to do. It may be different from what you've been asked to do previously. We're going to demand a lot, but we can guarantee you, or we feel strongly, that there will be a return on your investment. So if you do what we ask you to do and you invest all that you have in this process, you're going to see those dividends. And I think over the course of time, you've seen that, and no better example than the growth of our young quarterback, who's playing on time, playing in structure, and is still the fabulous playmaker that he was, leading up to this season.
Caleb's been incredible on the field, off the field. The growth of Ben Johnson, first year as a head coach for him, to the guy that we've seen shirtless in the locker room, making sure everyone's eating for free at the Wiener Circle. And the commentary about the Packers being very blunt in the post-game locker room about that, the icy handshake with Matt LaFleur after the game. You tell me, looking at that as someone that was a professional in this league, what's your reaction to that been? I'm sure Chicago fans are loving it.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. First things first, I would say this is truly authentic from my perspective. Again, not many of us know Ben really well here in Chicago, but this is not a show. This is not him trying to, whip up the fan base and feed them the red meat. This is who he is. He understands the rivalry. I think for the first time in a long time, I feel it's a true rivalry, Mike. As we say out here, the hammer doesn't have a rivalry with the nail, and the Packers have been the hammer and we've been the nail for way too long. And I think, a couple of weeks ago, they started swinging a hammer, and we got a good old-fashioned hammer fight going on here between us and the Green Bay Packers. So, you know how it is. You could tell. You could tell stories, I'm sure, from now to the end of the day about some of the colorful language that is used inside a locker room to describe how guys feel about their rivals. And I think, in 2026, you just get more of an inside look at it because of all of the cameras and the social media and everything. So, look, go back to the day I played for Mike Ditka. I was very fortunate to play for Coach Ditka. He said a hell of a lot more damaging things about the opponents from up north than Ben did. So it's just, it's sports. It's a rivalry. It is what it is. And I'm here for it.
It's been incredible. And now Ben joining some elite territory heading into this weekend. Ben Johnson and Sean McVay, just two of the three head coaches all time to take over teams last in scoring offense the prior year and take them to the playoffs. And now Sean has turned that into a long and illustrious career here in Los Angeles, has a Super Bowl to show for it. As you look at the matchup this weekend with the Rams team that comes in with Stafford and an MVP year, what's the area that you think the Bears have the best chance to exploit?
I would say, I would focus more on the Bears offense and how they match up with the Rams defense, because I'm not so sure how the Bears defense is going to slow down Matt Stafford and that offense. But I think that there is a bit of, if you can protect, now I won't deny the ferociousness and the accomplished group of front four that will be coming after Caleb. So if you can protect him, which his offensive line has done a really good job of this year. I think he was sacked just 23 times in the regular season, which, by the way, is a huge improvement from last year when he was taken down 68 times. So the protection has been there. And when it does break down, we've all seen that Caleb's a good enough athlete to eject the pocket and protect himself. So I would say if you can find a way to keep his pocket clean, or he can find a way to get out on the edge and find time to throw, I think there are going to be plays to be made downfield by this group of Bears receivers and tight ends against their back seven. I think that is a matchup that I really do think favors this Bears group. It's why I think this game's going to be a shootout, because you flip it on the other side and look, our defense has done a great job taking the ball away. They did it in a way that no other team in the National Football League did. But they give up a lot of points and they give up a lot of yards. And I don't know that this defense is going to be able to certainly not shut down this Rams offense, but slow it down. That's even a questionable situation as well. So I think you got to come out. You got to play hard defensively. You got to play with energy. And I know these aren't specifics, but I got to give you kind of the 30,000-foot perspective here, because they really are mismatches that don't favor us. So I think you got to play mistake-free back there. You got to try and take the football away, and you got to hope that Stafford's index finger on his throwing hand is like a bratwurst, and he struggles to handle the ball in these conditions. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a shootout, and I would just say, it's a Rams team, as much respect as I have for them. Defensively, they haven't been as good in the second half as they were in the first half of the year. I think when you factor out some of the mistakes on special teams and defensive touchdowns they've given up, or returns that they've given up, I think the defense has given up like 25 points per game the last 7 weeks. So they let teams hang around. And look, you let this Bears team hang around, you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile, you crack the door open, they're going to kick the door off the hinges. So that's that and special teams, Mike. Those are the two areas where I have a lot of faith that the Bears will deliver. You let them hang around, you give them life in the fourth quarter. And special teams wise, and I think the Rams fired their special teams coach towards the end of the year. So I think the Bears get a bit of an advantage there. So I'm looking for the scoreboard operator to have himself a night.
You and everyone else getting ready to watch this game. I think the other thing, in addition to the late game heroics from both of these teams, especially the Bears, is if you like to see tight ends on the football field, my brothers and sisters in Christ, this is your game between the Rams' use of 3 tight end sets and what the Bears have done, emulating what we saw from Ben Johnson for years in Detroit, using Cole Kmet and their rookie Colston Loveland. You know how much the tight end is asked to do in this offense under Ben Johnson. Yeah. How is Colston Loveland, and why has he been so capable to the point where wild card weekend, he's going out here and setting records with 138 yards receiving?
By the way, I think he's the youngest guy on their team as well. I think he turned 21 sometime, like May or June, somewhere around there. So he's just such a mismatch, Mike. I mean, he's 6'5" or 6'6" and 240. I think there were a lot of people that tried to compare him because of the connection with Ben here in Chicago. Try to compare him with Sam Laporte. And Sam's been a fabulous player in this league in a short period of time. I think Colston's an even better athlete than Sam. So if you've got Sam's skill set with even more athleticism, now you're looking at a guy that, if you want to drop a linebacker out in front of him, that guy can't hang with him athletically. You want to put a safety over top of him, that guy's not big enough to control him. You want to put a corner on him, again, that guy's not big enough to hang with him. And you've seen Ben do a lot with Colston, splitting him out, especially in the red zone, where you try to create these mismatches. And Colston's done a lot of his work in that area. He got off to a bit of a slow start because, as you remember, he was coming off shoulder surgery, and I just think Ben and his staff have brought some of these young guys along slowly and getting them acclimated to what's being asked. And there's nobody that Caleb trusts more at this point, and there's nobody that the coach trusts more. And there's been nobody in the passing game that's been any more productive than Colston. But, your point about how these two guys use tight ends, I would tell you, if you're a football nerd or you like the tape, go back to the 2-point conversion that the Bears ran after scoring in this last game, the playoff game against the Packers. You see Ben on the sidelines give you the heavy signal. So we're going heavy formation. They get in the huddle with 3 tight ends. So LaFleur and Hafley send in their heavy group. There's one defensive back on the field, and it's Xavier McKinney. They get into a tight set. Once Ben knows he's got exactly the defensive personnel grouping he wants, they pop out, they split out. Colston Loveland splits to the far left. They know he got exactly what they want. They got him matched up with a linebacker who, by the way, hasn't played a single snap of defensive football all year long. That's the defensive or the offensive genius of Ben Johnson, which exists on the other sideline too with Sean McVay. But they run a quick out with Colston, who's a mismatch with the linebacker that they had in there, thinking that they were going to run a dive with Kyle Monangai, and they complete the 2-point conversion. It's just an example of how they have used their personnel in so many creative ways. And like I said, I think you put the tape on of the other team, they do the same stuff. I called it, knowing that it's a family show, I called it football adult entertainment in terms of how I enjoy it, as opposed to the other phrase. But it's something else to watch how these guys use their personnel and create mismatches.
It's going to be an incredible weekend of that violent on-field chess between both these great coaching staffs and team. We're all looking forward to it, as I'm sure you guys are. Tom, always appreciate the time catching up with you. Enjoy the game this weekend, and I'm sure we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate you having me. Go Bears.
Great stuff from Tommy. Coming up next, Rick Barnes going to stop by as another scandal rocks college basketball and talk about he navigates these turbulent waters with his team in Tennessee next. Welcome back to Golic Sr. It's 2026. We're in the thick of it now in basketball season, both in the NBA and in college basketball. And to tell us about the grind of the middle of this season right now in one of the best conferences in the sport, Rick Barnes, kind enough to join us now, Tennessee head men's basketball coach with us here on the show. Coach, good afternoon. We appreciate the time. How you doing?
Good to be with you guys. Everything good on your end?
All good. All good.
We got no complaints right now, Coach, and you guys are in a good spot right now. Big win against Texas A&M in double overtime earlier this week. 24th in the polls right now. What have you learned about your team so far this season as you get to kind of that midway point, looking ahead towards March?
Yeah, we still got a lot to learn about ourselves. We've been very inconsistent. Not sure from game to game yet who we can count on. Just being consistent at doing their job. There's not a lot of difference between our team, really. Our front line, we wanted to be more of a front line team. We went a couple years here where we could not generate anything in the post, and we tried to do that. We haven't been as consistent there as we'd like. We've had our moments. With Nate Ament, we've even the other night against Texas A&M, we used him there more than we have at any point in time all year. So we're looking for consistency. I think there's a lot of teams like us right now. I think that's why you see a lot of coaches sometimes subbing 4 or 5 guys in at one time, just trying to find that. The transfer portal certainly has made things much more equal in terms of talent. Everybody can play, but I've always said you can buy players, but you can't buy a team. And we're still trying to search and we got a good group of guys. We got a really good group of guys. We're playing more freshmen than we ever thought we would play at this time with the transfer portal, but we're playing them because they've earned it. They've been more consistent than some of our older guys. But for us to be where we want to go, we have got to get more consistency out of our older guys.
You mentioned Ament, the freshman averaging a little over 15 points a game. You've been coaching a while. You've been a head coach since '87. How different are the freshmen in today's game as opposed to back a few years?
That's a great question. That someone actually told me today. There's a statistic out there where literally this freshman class is performing at a higher level than people that came through the transfer portal, which is, you wouldn't think that, but this is a tremendous freshman class that we have right now. To answer your question, I think it's going in cycles. I mean, I think if you can play the game, you can play the game. Obviously, it's a different game from high school to AAU to get here. And it's those guys that can come in and figure it out pretty quickly in terms of the physicality part of it. But they play so much basketball now in high school that they can, if they want to do it, and they come in and we've got so much more time with them in the summer. You know, back in the day, way back in the day, you know, we had a weight conditioning program and all that. And sometimes we've had a strength coach really since 1988. And I know that we were the first school to go just strictly a basketball strength coach while we were at Providence. But for the longest time, guys would come in and you only had a couple hours to work with them, you know, conditioning, couldn't go on the court with them until October the 15th. Now we get them in late May, early June. And so by the time we roll into the season, they've had so much more experience getting to practice against, you know, the more physicality and all that. And it's changed. That's where it's changed over the years, you know, where we've just got so much more time with them early that we can get these young guys up to speed if they're willing to work at it.
Nate certainly seems to have lived up to a lot of that already. I know and heard the other night you channeled Roger Federer, the former tennis great, as someone for him to learn from. What were you hoping for him to get out of that comparison here from tennis to basketball?
You know, one of the hardest things is, you know, we're playing a game, but there's a lot at stake, and, you know, there's money, and we know all that. We know all, and you guys know it as well as anybody at every level. Sometimes these kids have so much pressure on them that they really can't focus on the main thing. And their goal is to eventually become a professional athlete. But there's so much pressure on them right now. And Nate is one of those kids. He's a tough. You look at him physically, you wouldn't think that, quote unquote, he's a tough kid. He's a very tough kid. But we had a talk, and I could tell that he had an unbelievable amount of pressure on him. And I just had to play. I let him see the clip where Roger Federer said he had won over right at 80% of his matches, but only 54% of his points. And the whole point was, he said he had to learn to realize a bad shot is only 1 point. A great shot that comes on ESPN top 10 is only 1 point. How could he move on from that point and get ready for the next one when you know you're only going to win 54% of those points? And I just felt like Nate had been holding on to too much. You know, he wants to be so good. I felt like he had disappointed people. He's never disappointed us 1 minute, because he's everything you want in a player. He's obviously physically, he's going to continue to grow into his body, but from everything else, you couldn't ask for a better player. But it was tough. It's really, I should have probably had this talk with him longer. You know, before right now, but I felt like, and I actually before the game, Florida, I told Jay Billis that Nate's going to play well today, and he came out and he did play well, and he came back and played well the other night, and it's just, and I thought he just let a lot of that pressure, just unloaded it, and it's allowing him now to be who he should be.
You know, you're talking about pressure on players. There's certainly different types of pressures. There's just the indictment coming out with 4 players from different teams getting caught up in a gambling scheme. This is something else that has changed over your time in coaching as well. Is there anything that college basketball can do to kind of mitigate these instances?
Well, if you knew how much time we spend with our guys and how much we talk about them, and I think every university, I know everywhere I've ever been employed by, they do an incredible job of laying it all out, the gambling part of it, you know, talking, you know, back in the day, remember, I mean, there was times we couldn't even call a guy but once a week. And then, you know, agents were taboo. Now agents are involved in this game more than you can ever imagine, which is, they have a job to do. I get it. But our job is still to represent the University of Tennessee and this state in a way that we want everybody to be proud of. And so believe me, we're hitting everything early about you better understand staying away from gambling. You better understand every decision you make is going to impact you in some way now that you might not ever get away from it. But with all that said, we're not with them 24 hours a day. And so it goes back to from our point of view, in terms of our recruiting, our intel on each player is the most important thing. We have to have an incredible idea of what we're getting before we're willing to go down. And now it's not just scholarships. You're investing money in guys, and you expect them to live up to that. I'm hard on our guys about working. I mean, we have some guys that work harder than others, and I don't get it. We're paying guys to do a job. We expect them to do it, and people don't want to hear you talk like that. But the fact is, it's reality. You know, they're getting a scholarship has always been worth something. Everybody thinks scholarships are free. That it's like, you know, robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's not true. There's always been a value on scholarships, and now there's a lot of money involved here. And if you've earned it, we've given it to you. It works both ways. We expect you to really work at it, and we're going to work every day to help you be everything you can be. And we hope that when their time is up here, they know we've done everything we can to not just help them. I mean, we got it in place where if they need help with their money financially, our universities put that in place if they want it. But so many of them now, you know, they have other people outside us that we have absolutely no control over.
No question. It's a lot of different plates that are spinning right now, but you in this program, it sounds like, are doing everything you can to help these guys navigate the change and navigate it well yourselves. So, Coach, we can't thank you enough for the time and all the insight here. We appreciate it. Best of luck with the rest of the season. We're excited to watch more of the Vols.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
You know, Dad, he's not the first coach that I've heard mention guys responding to the different pressure that applies now because, I mean, you know, you played college football in the 80s. I'm sure there was still pressure to perform there. But now, as national as college athletics have become and their attention, but also as well reported as the dollar figures are, it's just like signing a big deal at the next level where you instantly have a bullseye on your back for people, and that includes your own fan base if the performance isn't there. So I can understand that being a different stress these guys have to deal with now.
Yeah, it definitely is. The only thing I'll say is if you don't perform up to the expectation, you can just transfer and go to another school. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to get big money again, but the movement you're allowed to do, I think, mitigates some of that. But to your point still, you're signing a big deal and the expectations are high.
Yeah, and I'm sure you still want to go out there and perform. You want to do right by your teammates and everyone that expects a lot of you. And it's a different ballgame now. Good for all these guys. Going to be a tough road to go coming up. Coming up next, though, tough road to go for everyone else who missed out on John Harbaugh. We'll spin the wheels on the coaching carousel and see where everyone is set to land next. Two's up, riding through hour number 2 on a Friday. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Dan Graziano going to stop by, give us some news and notes around the coaching carousel in the NFL, some big injury updates heading into the divisional round this weekend that you're not going to want to miss. Zach Cohen, with that in mind, going to help you figure out where to lay those shekels this weekend as well. But before we get to that, let's get you caught up on the big stories, our three-point stance. After striking out on Kyle Tucker, the Mets agreed to a 3-year, $126 million deal with infielder Bo Bichette. Sources told ESPN on Friday. The deal, pending physical, includes opt-outs after years 1 and 2 with an average annual value of $42 million. When healthy, he can put the ball on the bat, 294, 337, 469 slash line in his 7 seasons as the Blue Jays shortstop. So a big win for the Mets at a time they desperately needed it. A big loss for the Houston Texans. Their star wide receiver Nico Collins officially ruled out for this weekend's matchup against the New England Patriots. Remember, he suffered a concussion in that wild card win against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and a question on where they turn to offense. He's been their unquestioned number one playmaker, 71 catches for a team-leading 1,117 yards to go along with 6 touchdowns this year. Huge loss heading into their game against the Patriots. And a big loss for Duke, the reigning ACC champions, I might remind you. Darian Mensah expected to enter the transfer portal, sources told On3. The former Tulane star turned Blue Devil, now according to On3, leads to Miami as the clear team to watch in the recruitment. Threw for 3,646 yards and 30 touchdowns this last year. His total passing yards ranked 3rd in FBS and led the ACC this year. So we wondered, as Miami was kind of getting down to the wire, today was the last day to declare into the portal and do all this, what the answer was going to be for them. We heard Ty Simpson say that they had offered him a bag before he decided to go to the NFL. And so I mean, if that is the case, and that does happen quickly here, you have to wonder how tampery this looks in broad daylight, considering he had announced a while back that he was coming back to Duke and not going to the NFL this season.
My God, who's going to get in trouble for tampering? They're going to just continue to break rules until someone tries to stop them, and then who knows that they'll be able to stop them. It's ridiculous. I didn't realize Mensa was the highest paid quarterback this last year. Now, I don't know what figures to believe because they're not as apparent as when NFL or professional athletes contracts are made public. We're still not sure about the NIL deals, but supposedly Mensa made $4 million this year and was the highest paid quarterback. It's odd that Miami has waited this long or had not signed another quarterback. And it looks like Dante Moore, he could be making north of $7 million for Oregon this year, which is just incredible. But Miami could have a hell of a quarterback fall right into their lap as the portal is getting ready to close.
I mean, doesn't know how much he fell into their lap. Now, it would depend on how much of the other reporting that you believe, right? If Miami did offer Ty Simpson that much money, which I think Ty told directly to On3, so I'm inclined to believe it, and where they were at in some of the other sweepstakes for quarterbacks like Sam Levitt and everybody else. But the bottom line is Darian Mensa is a really good quarterback, a guy that it did, albeit at 7-5, they shouldn't have been in the ACC championship, but they did win it there. He was great at Tulane. As a young player there as well. Guy that functions really well, I think, off play action, which you can do a lot of in Mario Cristobal's run-heavy offense. So there's a lot to like for that if you're Miami, getting ready for the national championship, facing a closing portal window, and then trying to figure out what you're going to do next year to rebut whatever happens on Monday night. So big news potentially there. We will see if it does, in fact, end up being the Canes. I'd be stunned if it was literally anyone else at this point. Yeah. In the cycle, though. Speaking of this point in the cycle, you mentioned the name Dante Moore. Coming back to school, not only changed the college future for next year, but also upended some of what we're seeing in the upcoming NFL draft. The usual suspects, the Mel Kiper Jr.'s of the world, the Field Yates, have all updated their big boards. And for Mel Kiper Jr., looking at the top 10 right now, he's got Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love now sitting at the 2 spot there behind Fernando Mendoza. All the names that you'd expect. Arvell Reese in the mix as well. Caleb Downs, Francis Mauigoa, who's going to be at the right tackle spot for Miami coming up Monday night. David Bailey, the sensational edge rusher. And it's interesting, Dad. I went and looked at Field Yates' top 25 prospects now for the draft, and Ty Simpson not present in there. Again, this is going to be the exercise in self-restraint for quarterback-needy teams coming up, because clearly outside of Fernando Mendoza at that top spot, we don't have a guy who's top 10, top 15, maybe not top 20 or 25 worthy in this class.
Yeah, I'm surprised Ty Simpson isn't going back and getting more reps and more experience than just the 15 starts that he had. And you are absolutely correct. In NFL teams, usually normally overvaluing quarterbacks and taking them higher than they should go, to hold off on Ty Simpson, because I just don't see it as a high pick, and I don't understand why he didn't go back. But again, his choice, start his clock, and quite honestly, it may work out if he goes lower in the first round, could go to a better team and be able to kind of sit and practice and get reps that way. Interesting on Mel's big board, 4 of the top 8 are from Ohio State. I mean, that is just absolutely amazing. And 5 in the top 20 are from Ohio State. But just goes to show just the talent that they turn out at the next level.
Hey, look at Drew Aller on that draft board and ask him if he feels differently about coming back to school for another year of development and how much that served him. It's never a perfect process here. You make the best decision with what you got. With that in mind, ESPN National NFL Insider Dan Graziano, kind enough to join us here now. A lot to get to with the coaching carousel spinning, the playoffs coming up here. But Dan, I was curious because I heard some people musing about this. Dante Moore's decision to come back and not enter the draft. If you talk to people on the NFL side, what was the reaction there? Were people surprised by that move?
I don't think surprised. It's interesting because, it's the opposite. It seems to me to be the opposite decision that Ty Simpson made, right? Like, next year's draft is thought to be very deep at the quarterback position and a lot of other positions. So maybe you jump now and you get drafted higher. But Dante Moore making the decision, obviously it's made easier by the fact that you can make millions of dollars by staying. He would have certainly made a lot more as the number 2 pick in the draft, but I think he feels like he's going to be a better prospect this time next year, and the situation is probably more important to your long-term NFL success than how high you get picked.
So looking in the NFL, we have one coaching slot filled, John Harbaugh going to the Giants. We have 8 more to go. But there's still the question of Matt LaFleur. To me personally, I can't believe there's a question. If they were going to do something, my thought is it would have been done. Is he still possibly on the chopping block?
I guess until the contract is done, then you have to say yes. I still think they get to a deal with Matt LaFleur. The Packers and Matt LaFleur reach agreement on a deal. They are discussing one. I know that, have been all week. And you remember the GM, Brian Gutekunst, has also got 1 year left on his deal. So it's conceivable that the Packers want to do this all at once and kind of present it as like, here's our brain trust we believe in. But yeah, it's weird. And it's caught a lot of people's attention around the league of like, why isn't this done? Why haven't they come out and said it's done, even if they're just sort of dotting I's and crossing T's? So yes, Matt LaFleur, 1 year left on his contract. The new team president, Ed Policy, who took over from Mark Murphy last summer, said he didn't want Matt LaFleur to go into his lame duck season, so they want to extend him. If they don't extend him, then yeah, I think they end up making a change. However, I think it's much more likely that they do extend him. And if it was going to get to a point where they were going to part ways, you'd have to think that would be by now or pretty soon, because these jobs are going to start to fill up. These candidates are going to start to fly off the board. John Harbaugh, I think, would have been interested in a Green Bay Packers opening if it had come available. And certainly the Packers would have ways of knowing that. So, yeah, I think it's more likely he stays, but I agree with you that it feels odd.
A huge win for Giants fans then that wasn't the sliding door situation here is they do land John Harbaugh, big sum of money like we all expect. Dan, have we heard anything about the coaching staff taking shape around him, specifically the coordinators and who they expect to come?
I think that there's an expectation that he'll bring Todd Monken with him as his offensive coordinator, unless Monken gets a head coach job. He's interviewed for a couple of those. So we'll keep an eye there. I think that's the most likely outcome on the offensive side. It's much more interesting, I think, on the defensive side, because the last couple of years, after Mike Macdonald went to the Seahawks, Zach Orr was the coordinator, and the defense hasn't really maintained its level of success that it had under Macdonald, I think is a nice way to put it. I know that John Harbaugh loves Zach Orr and is proud of, the role he's played in his development as a coach, and on some level would like to have him on the staff. But I also think there's a chance you could see them go a little bit of a different direction with more of a veteran defensive coordinator. I don't know exactly who that guy is at this particular place in time. Maybe it's one of these former defensive head coaches that are interviewing for jobs, and like a Raheem Morris. I'm making these, but you know what I'm saying, like somebody who's been a defensive coordinator for a long time. I think that's a possibility for John Harbaugh, because he's the last couple of years you've seen, like they used to, remember they would bring in Dean Pease to help kind of get things straightened out. This past year they had Chuck Pagano on staff in Baltimore. So even as Zach Orr was coming up and developing into his role, John wanted a veteran coach there with him. And I think either it'll be an arrangement like that, or you might just see him go with a veteran coordinator.
It's kind of like what Nick Saban would do at Alabama, bring in an analyst who had a lot of coaching experience.
Just somebody that knows what they're doing. Just be around the team and here, let us know what you think. Yes,
exactly. So again, 8 spots left. We already have one coach who in the cycle in Harbaugh, who was a head coach on one of those teams. Do we think a Kevin Stefanski, a Mike Macdonald, a Raheem Morris, guys that were head coaches and got fired, do we think all of them are getting hired in this next cycle?
I think Kevin Stefanski will end up with one of these jobs if he wants it. I think we're watching him pretty closely. I think it's a possibility in Atlanta. I think Tennessee's also interesting for him. He's interviewed everywhere. He's well regarded and well liked around the league. So I would not be surprised at all to see him get one of these jobs. The other former head coach whose name you keep hearing a lot is Robert Saleh, who has done such a great job this year as defensive coordinator of the 49ers, obviously the former Jets head coach. He's interviewed already with a couple of teams yesterday. I think it was Arizona and Miami. And then he has more set up for after this weekend, after the 49ers play their game tomorrow night. Whether they win or lose, he'll be able to do some more virtual interviews. So, I think he's one to watch. Raheem Morris has kind of gotten some interviews. We've seen who was the other one you said? McDaniel.
Mike
McDaniel's
McDaniel.
interesting. Cleveland very clearly looking for an offensive head coach because they want to keep Jim Schwartz as the defensive coordinator, which I keep asking the question, why not just hire Schwartz as head coach? But I guess that's possible. But right now they're interviewing a lot of offensive coaches for head coach. So we'll see where that lands. But that might be a place that makes some sense for Mike McDaniel if he's going to jump right into another head coach job. If he doesn't, I think he'll be a red hot offensive coordinator candidate.
Certainly been one we've seen flying around making the run there. And I know a lot of teams, like you mentioned, some of the contenders from last year, big time into that. What about for the coordinators looking to make that move up, specifically offensively? Is Clint Kubiak the hottest name on the market right now, or is there someone else that people should be paying attention to?
Yeah, offensively, it's a year where most of the names you're hearing are defensive guys. And the offensive guys you're hearing are kind of more down the line in terms of age and level of responsibility, right? Everybody likes Grant Udinski, the offensive coordinator in Jacksonville. Obviously, the head coach Liam Cohen calls the plays there, but Udinski well regarded, and he's getting some attention. Nate Scheelhaase with the Rams, another young offensive coordinator who's not a play caller, but working under Sean McVay. And you guys, I think there's a league rule that says that one McVay assistant per year has to get one of these head coach jobs. So, it could be him, could be Chris Shula, we'll see. But Mike LaFleur, a lot of candidates there. But yeah, I think Kubiak is a guy that teams are interested in talking to. He's also, he's not new to this. Obviously, he's got the family name and all this, but I think he knows enough also that he might be in a position where his job is really good and he may not have to just sort of jump at whatever's offered. And so he could be a guy you hear on this cycle and maybe in future cycles to come.
The Eagles, such a drama team this year. Kevin Patullo is gone. From a player standpoint, one of the guys that was part of the drama, is A.J. Brown going to be on the Eagles next year?
Yeah, I don't think I'd be surprised either way. Like, I hate to give a non-answer, but, it's $43 million in dead money if they trade him. And you can't split that up over 2 years unless you actually wait until after June 1st to trade him. You can't do a post-June 1st trade, in March like you can with a post-June 1st release. So I think the Eagles are going to have to make that decision pretty early on this offseason. He obviously has been unhappy, but he's also obviously been a guy that's gotten it together and gotten to happy and productive. So that's an offensive coordinator position that is obviously very, very much worth watching. I'm sure that A.J. Brown is watching it and obviously doesn't mind letting his opinion be known on things regarding the team and the offense. So I think it's one to watch. I think if A.J. is not on the Eagles next year, I don't think a lot of people would be surprised. But the Eagles, they have their ways of sort of working these things out.
Nick Sirianni certainly did his part to try and downplay that after the sideline outburst.
It seems to be his main responsibility. Yeah, downplaying stuff like that, which is important there. There's all kinds of stuff like that.
Putting out fires when Nick Sirianni has his meeting with the Bobs, so they say, what exactly do you do here? He can at least point to that and see.
I have people skills. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Dan, always a pleasure, brother. We appreciate the time. Enjoy a great weekend, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to you again soon. We know damn well what you do here.
Pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. All right, coming up next, the last of our deep dives into the divisional round. We'll look at the Cardiac Kid Chicago Bears versus the Rams next on Golic and Golic. It's Golic and Golic. Our thanks to Dan Graziano, ESPN NFL reporter, for stopping by a little bit ago. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr. here as we turn our gaze towards the game that we have had our eye on since the beginning of the show. Rams-Bears, spectacular. You were out at Soldier Field last week watching the Bears make haste of their Green Bay Packers conference, or division rival, I should say. And now we're at a really interesting crossroads where, man, if you're the Chicago Bears, Dad, I feel like you're hoping you're looking at your future, right? Because I mentioned it with Tommy Waddle before. Sean McVay and Ben Johnson, just 2 of 3 head coaches all time to take their teams that were ranked last in total offense the season prior and lead them into the playoffs in their first season. Ben Johnson comes with that offensive wonderkin label, and he's been able to make it work so far this season, rebuilding that offensive line and rebuilding the confidence of Caleb Williams after a tough rookie season. Do they got one more left in them right now? 7 comebacks in the last 2 minutes. Can they make it 8?
How can you say no? How can you say, I mean, I'm picking the Rams. We both have the Rams in the Super Bowl, but how shocked would we be if the Bears pull off another one? And I think this is the one game this weekend where weather is going to be a factor. I'm reading a great article where our buddy, my former teammate in Philly, and our friend Jeff Fiegels is quoted a lot in the 2008 title game, the Giants NFC title game, Giants in Green Bay. The temperature ranged from -1 to -28. And he was talking, and other players were talking about how you deal with the cold. The temperature could get down to in the minuses with the wind chill in Chicago as well, with the high being in the single digits. So dealing with that, everybody deals with it differently. Do you wear too much clothing underneath? Is the field get slick from being cold? Does the ball get slick? Does it affect some guys more than others? That I think it could have a real effect on the game. And what else could have an effect on the game is, I talk about this so many times, the pass rush comes and the quarterback gets outside. You can't let the quarterback get outside. You got to make him step up, especially a guy like Caleb Williams, who just performs miracles when he gets out of the pocket. But rushers want to rush. They're going to test the inside rush on an offensive tackle. Next thing you know, a quarterback is running outside and making a big play. You don't want to, we talked to TJ Watt, you and I, before their game a couple of weeks ago. He said, you have a disciplined rush, but you don't want to take away from your rush. You still want to be able to use all your moves, but it can be costly.
Have you thought about, if you're the the Los Angeles Rams in this, letting the Bears win for the first three quarters? Like, play chestnut checkers in this. Because when you back them into a corner, the Bears go super, like they go ultra instinct. It's incredible to watch what they've done here. But jokes aside, like, the Bears' inability to land early punches and the Rams' inability to land late punches is just a fascinating cross-section on all this. You mentioned the weather, though. You may not be looking at two teams better constructed to make use of that. Now, albeit the Rams are used to playing in a stadium that's like semi-domed, it's kind of indoor-outdoor, but it's Los Angeles. It's never really that bad out here. The Bears certainly used to the elements, although Caleb Williams, a guy that played his college football in Southern California. But, like, you look at both these teams, it's tight end heaven this weekend. I went and looked it up, Dad, because we've talked about it a bunch all year long. The Los Angeles Rams use more 13 personnel, 3 tight ends on the field to go with one running back than anyone else in the NFL. I didn't realize how much more it is, though. 30.5% of the Rams' offensive snaps involve 3 tight end sets. That's more than double second place. So they went from just making it like a part of them. It's their whole identity under Sean McVay this year. And the way they use it, which kind of differs from the Bears, is they want to get up and run it. They want to have Kyron Williams and Blake Corum go and just run straight at you. So even though the Rams probably get that like pretty boy LA moniker when people think of it in general, this is a smash mouth football team now. So they're walking into a situation against a Bears defense that we know isn't that good outside of the turnovers, and probably saying, all right, sure, we're happy to make you help eat the food up front here, because that's who this football team is now under Sean McVay.
Yeah, I mean, that they certainly do like to run the ball. How effective were they in the regular season? They were obviously number one passing, but I think like 125, 130 yards rushing. But again, you're right, in cold weather. Now, the Bears have a two-headed monster as well as the Rams a two-headed monster to switch off. And, boy, both teams would love to establish runs, but I agree with you. The tight ends used differently. Rams more in run, but Parkinson, what he did, his catch last week was unbelievable, that catch and touchdown. And, boy, I tell you, what Colston Loveland has done as a rookie tight end for the Bears has been absolutely incredible. So I agree. I'm looking for a running back tight end game a lot because of the weather. The ball, like I said, can be a little slick for the wide receivers the more the ball is thrown deeper. This is one I will be interested to see if the weather has an effect on this game.
I will too. That being said, I'm with you. I can't really go against the Rams because I did pick them to make the Super Bowl. But also, I do think the challenge for the Bears offensive line, which is great group, we've waxed poetic about what Ben Johnson built there in free agency this offseason with that group, has a much bigger challenge in front of them in the front seven of the Rams, albeit maybe less so in the run where they're special than in the pass where that group can really get after you. But the other side, Kevin Dotson listed as full practice for Kevin Dotson today. So it looks like he's ready to roll, which is huge, right? Going into last week's game where you had Derek Brown on the other side for the Panthers, that was a dangerous matchup for them. So I do think him coming back is a really welcome sight and maybe that capstone for the more complete version of this Rams offense that also has Devontae in the mix too.
Yeah, Devontae being in the mix is obviously huge. Puka, I mean, how he gets open all the time is somewhat ridiculous, but going to be your classic frigid cold weather game. I sat in that booth with the windows open last week, and man, it was cold, and it's going to be even colder this week. So have the broth and the hot chocolate ready.
Well, if you're busy watching that, maybe from the comfort of your warm home, and happen to miss some great action here on FanDuel Sports Network, fear not. NBA and NHL fans, if you have to miss that live game, you can catch up on game replays on the FanDuel Sports Network app. So right after the final whistle blows for that game, you're able to watch every highlight, every big moment, all in your choice of a 5, 10, or 15-minute condensed game. So download the FanDuel Sports Network app wherever you get it. Coming up next, let's look at best bets for the divisional round in the NFL with Zach Cohn when we return here on Golic and Golic. Big weekend, big money, which means we need big help. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr. here on Golic and Golic as we look ahead to the divisional round as we've done all day. Going to be a great test for all these teams, an even bigger test for you guys when it comes to where to lay your bets, and that's why we want to enlist a little help. Zach Cohn, kind enough to join us, writer over at VSiN. You can check out all the great daily sports betting analysis in VSiN's daily newsletter. Go to vsin.com/newsletter. Zach, appreciate the time, man. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Appreciate it.
We appreciate it. We're looking forward to this weekend and looking forward to seeing the 2-1 seeds enter the fray. The Broncos in Seattle got to sit around and watch one of the more entertaining wild card weekends in recent memory, including the team Denver's getting set to face the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen take it to the Jags down there in Duval County. As you look at this Broncos team right now, how confident are you that the rest versus rust can come out in favor and for them?
Yeah, I feel really good about the Broncos. I think that it's actually a really similar matchup for Buffalo, facing, a team with a really good defense and maybe kind of a shaky quarterback in Bo Nix. But I do think that Denver having that extra week of rest is just going to be absolutely huge. I mean, Sean Payton, since he arrived in Denver, is 3-0 and coming off a bye week. And I do think that Nix is a little bit more reliable than Lawrence is. Like, I really had a good feeling that Lawrence was going to cough away that game, to be honest. I took Buffalo in that game. I know a lot of people were on the Jags, but I really felt good about Allen outperforming Lawrence in that one. But I don't think that Nix is going to be quite as bad. And I will say this Buffalo team is just 11-15 straight up under Sean McDermott when facing teams with winning percentages of 75% or higher. So they have not been all that good against elite teams, which is why we have not seen them in the Super Bowl.
How many different ways can you bet Josh Allen on props? I mean, the dude's unbelievable.
A million, honestly. And he plays so well in these games and usually does it a lot as a runner. So, in these types of games, I'm always looking to him to rush for a touchdown or to rush, go over his rushing yards. But it's crazy because I am a Jets fan. I did grow up in New York, and I kind of want to see Allen win just because I like him so much. So it definitely hurts a little that I have such a strong edge with Denver, but I do like the Broncos too much.
All right, the Broncos going to move on then in your world. What about the Chicago Bears? We've talked so much about this matchup, but now it's meme-worthy, the conversation around their ability to come back late in games. Is what you saw in Wild Card Weekend enough to give the Bears a chance?
I don't think so. I mean, I've been really impressed with Caleb Williams. I really like Ben Johnson as a coach, and it's amazing what they have been able to do in some of these fourth quarters. But it just kind of feels like when you look at the spread in this game, we're getting a bit of a discount on a team that I think has been the best team in football throughout the course of the season. I mean, the Rams are number one in the league in EPA per play, net EPA per play, so that factors in both offense and defense. And just looking at the defensive side of the ball, they're seventh in the league in EPA per play allowed. I think they're going to be able to slow down this Bears team. One thing that kind of sticks with me is that last year when the Lions faced the Rams the Rams held them to 20 points in regulation, and that was a Detroit team led by Ben Johnson, and I think it was a Detroit team that was better and more talented than this Chicago team is, and it was a Rams team that I think was much worse defensively. So with a better group in Los Angeles defensively, I think they're going to be able to hold Chicago's defense, especially if weather becomes a factor in that game, which it seems like it definitely might.
Well, how much does weather affect numbers?
A lot. I mean, if you take away the passing games for both of these teams, I think it also impacts this game in a big way and kind of favors the Rams, because I do think the Rams are a little bit tougher when looking at the trenches. I think Los Angeles has really good offensive and defensive lines. I think Chicago's a little less kind of tough inside. And I do think that, Williams, for as good as he has been this year, a lot of his, magic has been extending plays and making deep throws down the field. That's what got them to to this spot, in the win over the Packers. But if he can't do that, and they need to rely on the legs of Swift, I'm not sure that's going to be successful for them. We saw Ben Johnson kind of call out the running game after that win over Green Bay, and I'm not sure it's going to be much better here.
There's some Midwest group of dads that just heard Los Angeles tougher in the trenches than the Chicago Bears and just had their eyes start twitching as they listen to this. But hey, reality's a crazy thing, and the way that Sean McVay has built that team in Los Angeles is rock solid up front. Speaking of solid up front, the Houston Texans defense, world beaters, may have ushered in the end of Aaron Rodgers' career and had his final touchdown pass go to someone on the opposing team here. This Patriots offense, how different is this challenge for them, and do you think the Texans can still come on top with that?
Yeah, it's a completely different challenge. It's a good question. Like, May is obviously so much more mobile than Rodgers is, and he's more accurate, to every part of the field at this point in their careers. I mean, May has been, a legitimate MVP candidate all season long. So obviously we've seen some special stuff from him this season, but I do think he looked a little bit shaky last week in the win. And I kind of wonder if we're going to see, this Houston defense just impose its will again. I know that this is a different matchup. I know that, the Patriots are a little bit better, but I do think Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson make up one of the best pass rushing duos in the NFL. You look at Pro Football Focus, these are two of the 5 best defensive ends in the entire league. And this is the number 1 passing defense in the league and number 3 rushing defense. I just think that the Texans defense is going to keep them in this game. And I don't think that CJ Stroud can be much worse than he was last week. And I know that Nico Collins is out for this game. That's something that I was hoping to see was wrong heading into this one. I took 3.5 earlier in the week and was hoping we'd see Collins out there, but I still think that Stroud is a good enough thrower, at least down the field, that if he could connect on 1 or 2 deep balls in this game, I think that might be enough for them to cover 3.5 in what I think is going to be a low scoring game.
Yeah, how much does Mike Vrabel, a guy who's obviously a experienced player and certainly an experienced coach, help with the number of what he's done for the Patriots this year?
Well, I mean, Vrabel has been really, really good throughout his career, and I'll also add that he coached in the same division as the Texans, so there's a familiarity aspect of this as well, but I do think we're going to see Houston just be a little bit too much defensively. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if the Patriots end up winning this game by a field goal, but that's why you take the points. You don't have to win outright. I think the 3.5, if you can get it, is the way to go here.
Certainly great bets for this weekend. Zach, I'm curious, before the playoffs started, who you had as your Super Bowl matchup, into what you see on Wild Card Weekend change that view at all?
Yeah, I mean, I actually did think that I thought that the Bills had a really good chance of being the AFC representative. I've had the Seahawks to win the Super Bowl since about midseason, so I thought it would maybe be Seahawks-Bills. Now I have it as Seahawks over the Broncos, although that might not be the greatest prediction in the world as Sam Darnold deals with an oblique injury. So hopefully he is healthy and ready to go for that game against San Francisco.
Yeah, you and everyone in the Pacific Northwest crossing their fingers on that one, that, hey, maybe they just keep handing the ball off to Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet and don't have to worry about stressing him out too much. Great stuff from Zach. Again, check out his great work over at VSiN. Sign up at vsin.com/newsletter to get great VSiN expert content delivered to your inbox each and every day. Enjoy the weekend, man. We appreciate your time.
You too. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
That's, I think, going to be interesting is we're now getting to the point between Christian Gonzalez being someone also that was dealing in the concussion protocol this week, looking like he's trending in a positive direction. Nico Collins being out. The Sam Darnold injury has the chance to be the biggest wild card, though, if they did find themselves in a shootout, with how much that affects a player that's already as turnover prone as he's been. Because as you know, Dad, obliques, that's different for the guys down in the trenches than it is a guy in quarterback who's got to worry about all that torque necessary to throw footballs.
Yeah, how awful when he goes up to the coach and says, "I just felt something." I mean, you got to be, wait, what? You did what? I mean, nobody hit you. You're just throwing the ball. It's a throwing motion. Yeah, that's something. Well, obviously he's going to play, but could it start to affect him during the game? That had to be a bit of a shocker.
Yeah, no, I'd imagine hearts dropped for a second and the treatment began in earnest. So you hope that's the case for them, since Seattle, again, with that defense, with Jackson Smith and Jigba and what he's done, and with the way that rushing attack did look in some critical moments for them down the stretch of this season, all eyes on that Sam Darnold rib cage, torso area. We'll see.
Oblique.
I don't know how much. Yeah, I don't know how much shooting up an oblique is going to help for a quarterback, but we'll wait and see what goes on for that this weekend as we get going here. So great info by Zach. We appreciate his time. Now let's get to some active rivalries here, powered by the Active Cash Card, as we look at the NBA slate coming up this weekend as well, and some interesting storylines around some of the teams that have maybe made surprise moves this year. The Celtics and the Hawks meeting up on Saturday this weekend here. This one for the Boston Celtics, Dad, I think much more about the shock for many people around what their season's become. No Jason Tatum this year, still dealing with the remnants of that injury, maybe hopeful to get him back late, but what Jaylen Brown and the rest of this team have done has been nothing short of sensational in the East.
Oh, it's been fantastic. They have been, we kept talking about Boston and the Pacers not being able to compete this year, and the Pacers certainly aren't. But yeah, Boston is kind of pulling a rabbit out of the hat right now.
Yeah, and by pulling a rabbit out of the hat, we mean they're tied for second place, or actually, no, in sole possession of second place in the Eastern Conference. So it's been sensational. In these active rivalry segments, I am contractually obligated to provide my dad with fight footage from the rivalries and eras past. So, Dad, I present Tree Rollins biting Danny Ainge in the midst of this rivalry here, back when men were men and the rivalries and the hardwood meant something around here. Does this light your fire a little bit?
Yeah, I don't know about biting. There's one thing to fighting, which we're going to get to in another active rivalry, but there's something about biting. I mean, and I love the headline for this was "Tree Bites Man." It's pretty good headline. Yeah, it's pretty good headline writer in that. But Danny Ainge needed stitches, and I went back and I looked, and he needed a tetanus shot. Because I don't know if you're dealing with rabies with a human bite, but he had to get a tetanus shot for that as well. But, that's taking a fight a little too far when you bite somebody.
Just a smidge. So nice to see the bad blood there. Obviously, some of that mitigated this year as the Hawks are dealing with the post-Trae Young trade. And don't look now, the Boston Celtics, interesting decisions heading into the trade deadline. Anthony Simons and what he's become for them this season, including last night, for the Boston Celtics in their comeback win against the Miami Heat. Anthony Simons, 39 points off the bench, including at one point 11 in a row for them now. Could be a guy that, maybe if you can come to some sort of extension agreement, he's on there and can help this team that continues to kind of outpace where they're at. It's good problems to have for Brad Stevens and company in that front office to be able to make some moves here. But the Boston Celtics could potentially be looking to acquire assets to make another run here. We've mentioned the East is wide open. This is a team with championship metal in its core, even without Jason Tatum. And now Anthony Simons has provided them with a lot of good options with the way that he's come along this year.
Yeah, thought it was going to be a gap year, right? Like it is for the Pacers. Thought that was going to be that way for the Celtics as well. But, with the Eastern Conference pretty much wide open, Boston's kind of looking around going, wait a minute, let's give this a go.
Incredible. The 12th player in Celtics history to score 39 points in 34 or fewer minutes was Simons last night, the first to do it off the bench. So pretty rare air for a franchise with that much history underneath their belts, and a cool moment for him. But not the only active rivalry powered by the Active Cash Card that we have going on this weekend in the association. No. Pistons-Pacers coming up on Saturday as well. The Pistons coming off a pretty brutal outing by Cade Cunningham. Missed 13 of 16 shots, went 0 for 7 from beyond the arc and 4 for 9 at the line to finish with just 10 points and 11 assists. But the team still found a way to win against the Suns, and that to me Dad, kind of the thing that shows you the championship medal that Detroit's trying to build. The Pacers, we know the season's been in a free fall, everything coming into this year about the injury to their star player after last year's appearance in the title. But this, to me, all about how Detroit continues to show their resolve on the top of the Eastern Conference. It probably continues to put distance between themselves and second.
Yeah, and last year, this rivalry did get a little chippy with Halliburton, who was obviously out this year, and Cade Cunningham. But, Detroit has it all going on right now. But listen, this rivalry is all about November in 2004, right? Okay, just sit back and listen, Mike. This is malice in the palace. That's what this rivalry is about, okay? End of the game, coming to the end of the game, Ben Wallace goes for a layup for Detroit. Fouled hard by Ron Artest. They start a brawl, and it is an all-players brawl, right? The refs finally break it up. Ron Artest is actually laying on the scorer's table, waiting for the refs to decide what they're going to do. When all of a sudden a drink comes flying out of the stands and hits Ron Artest. So what does Ron Artest do? He goes flying up into the stands, and he actually grabbed the wrong person. Could you imagine being that person who didn't do anything and got grabbed by Ron Artest trying to plead, I didn't do it, but he grabbed the wrong person. Other Pacers ran up into the stands. A fight broke out with players and with fans. At the end of all of this, 9 players were suspended a total of 146 games and lost $11 million. 5 players were charged with assault and sentenced to 1 year probation and a year of community service, and 5 fans were banned for life. That's an evening. That's an action-packed evening right there.
One of the most important days in NBA history, and certainly one of the most important days in my sports lifetime, the modern equivalent of The Purge meets Fan Edition, and something that, if we're being honest, post-pandemic, we're probably due for to remind some people that it's not sweet out here with the way that they want to treat players on the field and on the court, but maybe that's a story for another day. So enjoy that one coming up this weekend, a trip down memory lane that might make the Pacers feel a little bit better than the outcome of this game, more than likely, considering the path that the Pistons are on. All right, coming up next, let's wrap this thing up and pick some games. A big weekend in the divisional round. We'll tell you who wins, who loses, and by how much right here as we finish up Golic and Golic. I hope you thought today's show was great, because Monday is going to be even better. Matt Hasselback going to stop by and recap the divisional round with us. We'll preview the college football playoff national championship game as well, as Indiana and Miami enjoy those last few very anxiety-riddled sleeps before they play the big game that everybody watches. Don't miss it. Monday, 3:30 to 5:30 Eastern, right here on FanDuel Sports Network. Mike Golic Jr. and Mike Golic Sr. with you guys here again today as we wrap up on a Friday. And before we get to our picks for the weekend, you thought we were done? No. Active rivalries on the hardwood give way to active rivalries on the ice. And we got one more active rivalry powered by the Active Cash Card to tell you guys about. That one will be Blue Jackets Penguins, which is going to be really interesting. Coming up Saturday, Dad, because the Columbus Blue Jackets already made the decision this season to fire their head coach in Dean Evison and hire a new one in his replacement, Rick Bowness. The midseason change came after the Blue Jackets held the worst record in the Eastern Conference at 19 wins, 19 losses, and 7 ties. But how about Bowness? 2024 retires as the coach of the Winnipeg Jets and says, hey, I got health reasons. I want to spend more time with my grandkids, me and my wife. And now both him and his wife, better. He was wondering if a call would come in. He was on a boat with his wife in the middle of Florida's intercoastal waterway when he got the call from the Blue Jackets manager, Don Waddle, on Monday. And so the 71-year-old decided to come back. Is this not your ultimate reminder of what sickos coaches are? That a 71-year-old hanging out on a boat in Florida thought, no, I'd rather be in the rink with the boys.
I mean, coaches are crazy. I mean, there are some that just stay away. The one that I'm reminded of the most is Jimmy Johnson, when he went on to studio and did not want to come back and now retired and just fishes in the Keys. For the most part, these coaches can't get it out of their systems. And quite honestly, when they stop coaching, we see their health slip a lot of times. When quite honestly, coaching isn't the most healthiest thing in the world for the time that they put in. But you know, at 71, this is something he's done obviously for decades, and let's see what he can bring to the team. You know, I mean, different personality, different different thought process, different mentality. Let's see how the players respond.
I was going to say, can that help a team in the midway point of the season like this? I mean, he was pretty clear in the press conference. He saw areas at home that he thought could be improved right away. Said he wouldn't have come back if he didn't believe this team was capable of more. If you're a player, how much of a difference can this make midway through the season?
Well, I mean, what will happen is he's not going to go there and just let everything remain the same. There's a reason why they did a coaching change, because they don't like what was going on. So what does he implement? Does that kind of refresh the players a little bit? Does that give them a spark? Does that give them some more enthusiasm to try something different? Ultimately, they'll be judged by wins and losses, and if they keep losing, then players are going to be like, well, what good did this do? But you're trying to provide a spark.
Yeah, and I think fresh eyes on that process midway through the season, when it's the dog days. It's a physical sport. It's a long season. Like, having this natural boost where, hey, you also realize anytime someone gets fired in the building, it sends that message to everybody that if the head man can get fired, all of us become replaceable in the middle of this process. So excited to see that one as they go up against the ageless wonder in Sidney Crosby and the continued sensational season. He has 51 points, his 19th season with at least 50 points, tied with Ovi and Wayne Gretzky for the 6th most in NHL history. Ho-hum as he continues to go. Let's keep going here towards the finish line and pick some games. We've got the NFL division round. As we've mentioned here, let's pick the games that we have coming up this weekend. You see the path to the Super Bowl. LX Levi Stadium, Santa Clara, California. Dad and I both picked the Rams to get there. Spoiler alert, so I have a feeling we'll get to picking them soon. But let's start off and go in chronological order for these games as we go through the weekend. Bills Broncos. You can't pick this game since obviously you're going to be on the calls we've established for Westwood One. But give me the biggest key, maybe outside of Josh Allen, that you're looking for in this game that's going to swing the tides for the Bills of the Broncos.
Well, Bo Nix scrambling, right? Because the Bills have given up some yards on scrambling quarterbacks. So we talk about Josh Allen moving around, but Bo Nix, I think, has run the ball outside the pocket like 83 times. So he can do that. He's got legs to cause some damage. So that, to me, is going to be interesting if he breaks contain, what he does with his legs.
You can't pick it. I can. Broncos slight home favorite. I'm going to take them to move on. They're my AFC participant in the Super Bowl, so I better. I think that offensive line, this Bills defensive front and stopping the run is just too bad for me to have faith in. I get the Broncos haven't been great since Dobbins went down, but I still think that offensive line can move some bodies. Let's move along to the NFC West rematch here. 49ers on the road against the 1 seed Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks, big favorite at home. The 49ers, we know, lost George Kittle last week. Are you giving them any chance in this game with all the familiarity?
I'm just not. I just think Seattle's defense is too good, and the San Francisco defense just doesn't put enough pressure on the quarterback with a 4-man rush. And if they blitz, Sam Darnold's going to have to take advantage of that. But a 4-man rush, not a lot of pressure, just 6 interceptions, not a lot of ball hawking. So Sam Darnold, I don't think, needs to be at his best. Count on that defense to put you in position and take advantage of it. I like Seattle, and the 7's a big number, though. I don't know if I'm giving the 7.
I'll give the 7 in this case. Like, Seattle lost this matchup week 1, won by 10 in week 18, and since then, the 49ers have only been more banged up. Now, we'll see. I didn't see Ricky Pearsall's status, which would be big in week 18. Seattle said, hey, we'll play man on all your receivers and focus on Christian McCaffrey because he's the only one that can hurt us. And Ricky could make them pay for that. But I think the Seahawks win big, and I'm with you. I don't think Darnold has to get too stressed out, as he would get, by the way, his first career playoff win at his big age, which is pretty incredible. Rams-Bears, we've talked a bunch about the Cardiac Kids hosting the Los Angeles Rams 3.5-point road favorites here. We're both picking them since obviously there are Super Bowl picks here, but certainly going to be an interesting one to watch from the standpoint as we've established today. The Bears are never dead.
Yeah, Bears are never dead. This is going to be an exciting one to watch, but we both think the Rams are a better team. I'll give the 3.5 as well and think the Rams move on to the NFC Championship game.
I will too. All right, last but not least, since we're being awful chalky here, at least I am, Texans-Patriots. Texans walking into the Patriots, the 2 seed. Patriots 3-point home favorites. That defense frothing at the mouth. Is one of us going to pick an upset here, Dad? What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with. I think I'm going to go with Houston. The Patriots are favored by 3 in this one. I'm going to go with Houston. It had to be just drilled into C.J. Stroud's head to hang on to the ball, right, and not turn it over. No Nico Collins, though. That really, really, really hurts. Let's see where they can make up the difference. But that defense is absolutely going to keep them in the game.
I think Nico Collins is going to be the swing state for me. If he's on the field, I might have picked the upset. I'm going to ride the Patriots and say that Drake May's leg's the difference against that pass rush. Going to get hit a bunch, but he showed he's a tough kid, and he's able to make it happen, get out alive. So I think I went all chalk on the weekend, which is boring, but I think that's where we're at in the league defined by defense right now. So we'll wait and see. Dad, you got big plans for the weekend? What are you going to do to watch these games? Pop a couple of cold ones here, go to the casino? What do you got going on?
Well, I get to call the first game of the weekend, so I'll get home, a quick flight to Denver, so I'll get home pretty quick after that. No, I'll be on the couch eating snacks, petting the dogs. That's going to be it.
That's a beautiful weekend.
Chipotle Sunday. Yes.
Chipotle Sunday. We hope you all have a great weekend and enjoy yours too. Thanks for watching. For more Golic and Golic clips, make sure you subscribe to the FanDuel Sports Network YouTube channel.